Magalhaes to Stokes, who's onside. 1-0.
Here's Sims. It's a good serve this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it. Just a minute to play. That's stoppage time. Here's Letizia. Who better to say farewell than one of the finest players ever to wear the red and white.
Hello and welcome. It is episode 95 of the Saints FC podcast. And I've just realised I'm going to have to change my title of this podcast, which was Saints Top 4, because we're now Top 5. Thanks, Leicester. Obviously, that game's ongoing, so we may be Top 4 again, but it looks like they're 2-0 ahead, so we'll forget about that. And instead, I think we'll have a theme of what is a James Ward-Prowse. How does that sound, Tom?
We've all got lots of things to say on that one, John.
Yeah. So as you can guess, listener, Tom Parker is sat opposite me. He's got his new microphone. Thanks for the feedback from that. Someone even said that they could listen in the shower, Tom, whilst they were listening to the podcast. That's how much better the sound quality was with your new microphone. So.
Slippery slope, John.
Yeah, listening to the podcast in the shower. Well, actually. Yeah. We've got a new sponsor for this show as well, Tom.
Segue.
And perhaps this kind of segues into it because actually our sponsor, their product you can use in the show apparently. So I'm going to do when you get a podcast sponsor, Tom, they quite often, the ones which have done it with, do the whole podcasting advertising regularly, they send you some show notes to go through. So I'm gonna hit the brief here and we'll do this properly. And they've got some talking points for us to go through, Tom. So we'll see how we get on with this, okay? Support for the Saints FC podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels.
Oh, it's a nice strapline, that.
So, Tom, they've also given some talking points. They've also sent us some free products, and I'm going to do... your lovely young daughter probably hasn't got to the point where she's watching unboxing videos on YouTube, which is where kids kind of open up a box of toys. We're going to do an unboxing from our new sponsors. But yeah, so there's this company called Manscaped. They are very much targeting the male section of our audience, and they produce men's grooming products and for below the waist, Tom. So that's an area that we're going to have to talk about.
I can't remember the last time I shaved my legs, John.
I know. So one of the talking points was host to talk about a time when he hurt his balls while trimming below the belt, or a funny ball trimming story. Tom, I don't know if I can do this. Can you?
I don't know if I've always been maybe this is why a product like this is needed, because whilst I'm quite a hairy guy, my half of my family are Maltese, which is one of the hairier of the Mediterraneans, I'd say, and I've always been too scared to go for my actual what those things that hang off the bottom of clocks. Always been too scared to go for that bit, 'cause that to me is there lies danger, I always think.
Okay. Well, I think, basically Manscaped, they've just launched in the UK. Apparently we've gone years without using the right tools for the job. And now, listener, you have your chance to be one of the first men in England to experience their life-changing products. They've sent us some of their life-changing products, Tom. I'm going to open this live on the podcast. So you're going to hear the microphone's going to go to opening the box. That's the tape coming off. I'm looking inside. And so this is basically what Manscaped's trying to get you to buy. Pair of boxer shorts.
That's cool.
Ball toner. Reviving ball toner. And ball deodorant.
Kids. I don't know how much reviving you need.
And then there's a nice trimmer here. That's the sound it makes.
Ooh.
There we go. Basically, anyway. You know the deal. Listener, if you want to give these a try, we have got an amazing offer from Manscaped. So you can go onto their website. They've got some incredible deals already on there. And you can also get 20% off and free shipping by typing in Saints, all block capitals, into the coupon code. So get 20% off and free shipping. And here it says, another thing for me to point out, your balls will thank you. So try that out, listener. Let us know how you get on. If anyone does have some funny stories they'd like to share about that, then do that. But yeah, Tom, I think we should get on to the other the balls, which is the footballs at this point. Yes,
I think that's another good segue out of there, John. Very sick, like your balls.
Not yet. I got to say, I was mortified, Tom, because I gave them my personal home address, and then when I got the kind of delivery note emailed across, I was just like, your parcel's been delivered. I was like, well, nothing's arrived at home. And then I noticed that I must have accidentally given the postcode for my work address and not my home address. And there was this photograph of this package from this company for me left on the reception desk at work. Thankfully, the packaging was quite discreet, but for a moment, I was a little bit anxious there.
You're going to walk in, and the lady was just like, "John, your ball trimmer's arrived."
Exactly. Right, football now. So, Southampton 4, Aston Villa 3. What a humdinger of a game, Tom, and what an amazing first half this was. In particular, so good. And, even from about 3 minutes in, I think when Che Adams, I don't know if he even did find the net, but he had a goal ruled out for offside, even though it looked like an own goal from Villa. We were just on the front foot for that entire first half and looked absolutely fantastic. And Tom, I mean, how were you feeling at this game? It was just great, wasn't it?
It was great. I managed to get out to the pub. I managed to take my wife and baby out to the pub to find a pub that showed it with sound on, which is quite rare nowadays. And I think you got to have sound. So very exciting. Just even getting to the pub was exciting. But yeah, Saints were rampant, weren't they? I mean, the first 45 minutes was just unplayable, and every player did their bit. And I think, we'll talk about the goals, but sort of Villa didn't really know what hit them, did they?
No, it was relentless. The pressing was fantastic. The midfield duo of James Ward-Prowse and Aurelio Romeo were absolutely tip top again. They were just great all over the park. I thought Kyle Walker-Peters was great, kind of coming up the wing. Ings and Adams looked good. Armstrong looks like he's getting back to full fitness. Vestergaard, I mean, didn't have loads to do in the first half, but every time he was called upon, he and Bednarek kind of dealt with what they had. I don't think McCarthy had to do anything in the first half, so he's probably the only player that you could say didn't have an amazing first half performance, but he ended up having a good performance by the end of the match.
God, yeah.
So
it was it's a lot to love, John. Yeah.
Should we start with the Che Adams offside goal?
Yes, good place to start. 3 minutes in, so we've given him a warning, haven't we? By this stage, this is by the stage we hit the bar. Or did we hit the bar afterwards? We hit the bar just after this.
Yeah, we hit the bar just after this, but we'd had a really nice kind of surge forward at this point. And I think Ings had kind of cut it back. It gone out for the corner, and then that gets whipped in. Ings does a really lovely kind of flick-on header, doesn't he? And
was it Ings or was it Vestergaard?
Was it Vestergaard? Yeah, perhaps it was Vestergaard.
And yeah, it to be fair, if we take our Saints hat off and put our regular football fan hat on, it was offside, I guess, by the law of the land. And he possibly didn't touch it, but like Bill Shankly said, if you're not interfering with play, then what are you doing on the pitch? I think it's one of those ones where the players sort of didn't really celebrate, did they? It was a bit weird, and I guess you just kind of knew. But what was unusual that it was able to get all the way back to basically taking kickoff before VAR was able to discern that it was offside. And it looked like a pretty cut and dried one. So it was a bit strange, but yeah, it was one of those ones where you sort of feel a bit aggrieved if it gone against you, but if it had gone for you, you'd be totally, totally like, yeah, that's totally the right decision. I've got no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things as well, which I haven't noticed before, is on the kind of footage, it looked as though they were showing the big screen in the stadium, so the players were getting a chance to actually see what the referees were reviewing. And I don't know if that's a normal thing or not, if that's a new thing they've brought in for this season, but we got to see Chadham's reaction as, you know, he saw his goal being ruled out and the lines being drawn from his shoulder down to the heel of the Aston Villa defender, and it being ruled out. And he had quite a good face that was captured on the screen, I think, for when his goal was ruled out.
I think he kind of had the face of just a fan, didn't he?
Yeah.
Of like total nonsense. But I thought, John, were they going to change VAR so it's like shoulders don't count or something like that? Or have I just completely made that up?
I think there was a lot of debate, wasn't there? Because last season they were doing it from the armpit.
Right.
Which I think, or that's what the kind of narrative was. But it should be, I think, the kind of furthest forward part of your body that you can legitimately score a goal with. So the armpit is quite a good marker, I suppose, for kind of perhaps where your shoulder ends and your arm starts. So yeah, they're basically doing it from the shoulder down, and you know, he was, I don't know, a couple of centimetres further forward, wasn't he? And although he didn't touch the ball, I mean, he was definitely involved, wasn't he?
Yeah, and a great corner from JWP.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get on to James Ward-Prowse in a moment, Tom, because I don't think we're going to get through this podcast without talking about him quite a lot. But before that, we did have the Walcott opportunity, didn't we? So, I mean, he's come close twice now. He had that chance against Chelsea, which Vestergaard obviously skimmed into the net with his head. And then this one, I think it was tipped onto the bar by the Villa keeper. Yeah,
it was a good move, wasn't it? It was a break down the right. Ward-Prowse with a lovely flick on, I think, to Danny Ings. And yeah, it was a funny one with Walcott, because he hits it first time almost as if he's leaning backwards, and forced a decent save. But you wonder if he would have, would have been better off trying to take on his man and cut inside. He maybe just lacking a little bit of confidence when it comes to that final shot. But he tested the keeper.
Yeah.
But again, it's another warning shot, isn't it?
Yeah, another warning shot, and then we finally get to the kind of first Saints goal, which again comes from some work down the right-hand side. And we win a foul. I think, was it from a foul on Kyle Walker-Peters? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Coming up the right-hand side.
The whole thing was a bit weird because it was a foul throw, I think. And you heard all the Villa players shout for a foul throw, Kyle Walker-Peters, and the linesman standing right next to it, and the referee just totally ignored it. And then it was a foul, but I didn't think it was a foul. And the weird thing about it was that, Walker-Peters had already well crossed the ball by the time Target sort of hit him.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a weird one, but obviously we won't complain. But yeah, kind of two slightly controversial moments in the build-up.
Yeah. So James Ward-Prowse obviously steps up for the free kick. Great opportunity for him to get a cross in. Vestergaard towards the back post, moves towards the ball, and he heads this.
Yes.
With so much power and force. I think he gets as much speed on it as a Ricky Lambert penalty.
He leathered it with his head, didn't he? I think, but it was great because it was a fantastic free kick from James Ward-Prowse, as you'd expect, and he put almost all the power. He put a lot of power into the ball, and then Vestergaard's like, actually, I want a bit more power. Actually, I think I'll take the net out, and it kind of loses McGinn, and it was interesting because it's sort of like you wonder, why has Vestergaard not been doing that, almost every week? There's no one taller on the pitch, but it was a great header. And he's turned into a hell of a player.
Yeah, and he picked his spot as well. I mean, he banged it into the top corner with his head.
Yeah.
I mean, the neck muscles and control, and also, I don't know, Tom, when you play football and you're an amateur, I think kind of like one of the things that lots of amateur footballers do is close their eyes when the ball's coming towards them for a header. But, you can't do that. And he's facing up to a really whipped-in James Ward-Prowse cross and just smashing that back into the top corner with his head. It's made me actually think back to the days when I used to go and watch lower league football when I was growing up in Bath, and there was a guy called Andy Tilson who played for Bristol Rovers, and he used to do a warm-up with the goalkeeper before the match started, where the goalkeeper would be kicking it to just beyond the halfway line, and he'd head it back to the keeper. He was able to head the ball, half the length of the pitch. And Vestergaard seems to have that sort of that level of strength. It's kind of back in those early 90s when lower league players, they might be good at one thing and nothing anything else. And Andy Tilson was just like the greatest header of the ball.
No, it was great movement. Great. It was a lot of great free kick, great free kick, great movement from Vestergaard, who got the slip on McGinn, and it was a brilliant header. Yeah.
We then get some, continue to play really well. Saints continue to push forward. We end up with Walcott getting the ball kind of like deep into the Villa half. And then he's kind of felled by Luis, and suddenly we have a free kick in proper James Ward-Prowse territory here. You're talking about 25 yards out, so plenty of time to kind of get the ball up and over the wall, dead centre, so the keeper can't really choose a side. He's got to cover the whole goal. He knows the wall aren't going to do it. And it's perfect James Ward-Prowse territory, this. And on his birthday, with an assist already in the bag from his assist to Vestergaard, he can't do anything but just absolutely smash it into the top left corner. Beautiful, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was postage stamp stuff, and I thought he was going to score. You just changed your genuine feeling. I think you're right, John. You look at everything, it's the perfect distance. Yeah, he's full of confidence. He's going to score, and there's nothing that the keeper could do about it. And he's a good keeper, Martinez, and he couldn't get close to it. But the funny thing is, you can imagine Saints have probably got a number of good things going on at the moment, and one of them is obviously with Redmond and with Walcott and with Armstrong in particular, you've got players that are very adept at coming off the wings and sort of gliding into the middle of the park. And you can see now that teams are going to have a bit of a problem because they're either going to need to tackle them perfectly. It doesn't often happen anymore because any sort of physical tackle is generally a foul. Or foul them, or let them go, or foul them. And you can imagine, Dean Smith would have said to his players, do not foul in this golden bit of the pitch. Do not foul. And what do they go and do?
Well, I mean, it's interesting though, isn't it? Because Villa just continued to commit fouls throughout the whole game. They've got that fouling. That's obviously part of their tactics, is tactical fouls. But this is the point where a tactical foul becomes the wrong tactics to employ, doesn't it? Because you give away a free kick to Saints in that area, and you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get on to the second free kick as well, which I think was even more tricky. It comes from a Matt Cash handball, which I thought he was very lucky to not be sent off for.
Well, John, he should have been sent off for it because he should have got booked for clattering Ward-Prowse a few minutes before, I think.
Yeah. But even if you just take that incident on its own, Tom,
yeah,
you can argue that he was denying a clear goal-scoring opportunity because does the ball go over him and Walcott takes it, then it's just Walcott versus the keeper. Matt Cash is the last defender.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the law of the game to this extent, but I wondered it. Well, first off, the foul I think on Ward-Prowse is before this, and it's a good moment where he clatters James Ward-Prowse and then sort of sides him. And I think by this point, Ward-Prowse have been booked. We hope because he got booked quite early on. And you see Ward-Prowse gets up full of rage and goes to run after him, and then obviously realises he's been booked. And then being the very sensible, level-headed young man that he is, just sort of stops. But yeah, I don't know, John. I mean, I think if the ball, I almost think that, I guess, look, if you stop the ball going through and someone's going to be one-on-one with the keeper, that's generally, you get sent off, don't you? I think.
Yeah.
I wonder if that had been a long ball over the top, and he'd done it. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was when I first saw it, I wondered if he didn't get sent off because there was still, if you think about it, from that point on, Walcott still has to get control of the ball to create a goal scoring chance.
Yeah.
Where, so I don't know. But I mean,
whereas
to me,
if he's already got control of it and then you commit a professional foul. Yeah.
Because I guess he's not denying a goal scoring chance because Walcott might shin it, or who knows what he might do. So I don't know. Yellow was probably the right decision, but it felt like it could have been a red. But again, like, what a stupid thing to do.
I know. And to be honest, let's face it, you probably want a Theo Walcott who's slightly rusty after, he's not had much game time since about March last year when he kind of fell out of favour with Carlo Ancelotti. He's only had, this is what is his second game. And so you probably would rather Walcott in a one-on-one situation rather than James Ward-Prowse again. This time a bit closer, a bit harder, and lesser free kick takers would find this very difficult to get from this distance up over the wall and then back down into the goal. But he's done it again. It's an absolute beauty again as well, Tom, isn't it?
It's a worldie. And I think Martin Keown on Match of the Day 2 spoke about his whippish, I think he called it, like this ability to sort of, very David Beckham-esque, to sort of, he almost like cuts across the ball. And his technique where you almost see him, like there's a moment where both his legs are off the ground, he does this thing where he cuts across it so much, but Martinez couldn't get near it. And I think a lot of the pundits and, Peter Crouch on Match Day 2 was saying that it's actually a harder goal than the first one because of the close range to get it, up and down again from 20 yards is that much harder. But Martinez didn't have a chance.
No, I totally agree. And also the other thing which I think makes it even more impressive, not only has he got it over the wall, but it's not even gone like right in the top corner. It's about a good foot down from the crossbar. So he's got it up and down. It's also curving away from Martinez. So he's managed to get like enough top spin that it goes up and down and goes in, but also curving away so it kind of goes into the side netting from inside the post. It's just beautiful. And again, he's hit it so hard. I think that's the thing. And the thing which you lose when you watch the slow motion replays is these, I think, are more impressive in real time. When you just see how hard he hits it. And with that level of accuracy, it's just beautiful.
Well, there's few things better than a free kick being taken and a goalkeeper not being able to dive. Yeah, Matty used to do a good few years. I think Matty did a free kick against Aston Villa. I'll try and dig it out where I think it's like Steve Greenswich or someone just can't dive. The ball whips such pace. But what do you do? I mean, I guess we'll talk more about. I mean, I sent John earlier, I think today, some stats about Ward-Prowse and his free kicks. But you can imagine now if you're Newcastle and you're doing your defensive drills for Friday, and you're looking at it going like, we cannot foul anywhere. We can't foul anywhere near the box because his crosses are deadly.
Yeah,
it's not a one-trick pony.
His crosses are deadly. His shots are deadly. I mean, Tom, I want to bring this up, and I want you to choose your favourite in a moment. But also the XG that we've talked about before, so the expected goals. And I think when Saints get a free kick like that, I'm more surprised if we don't score from that situation than I am if we do. I think like Ward-Prowse hit a couple of free kicks awry in those first two games against Palace and Tottenham. I can't remember which games it was, but one of them he missed a free kick and it went quite far away for Ward-Prowse, and I was kind of a little bit aghast actually. Those two chances, I think one had like an XG of 0.11 and the other one like 0.15 or something like that. So you're basically giving it about a 1 in 10 for a normal human being could kind of score from those sorts of chances. But James Ward-Prowse,
normal Premier League footballer, Jay. I mean, you're talking like the best footballers in the world, 1 in 10.
Yeah, exactly. So, you'd need 20 of those free kicks to get 2 goals, as James Ward-Prowse managed on Sunday. And, maybe they need to have a new XG just for James Ward-Prowse free kicks, because I felt like I knew he was going to score both of those. I was never really. I wasn't surprised when the ball hit the back of the net for either. In fact, I was kind of expecting it.
So he's now 30. Is it? He scored 13% of the direct free kicks scored in the Premier League since the start of last season.
Yeah.
Because what did he get last season? He got at least 3. I think he got 1 at Norwich, 2 against Watford, or 2 against Norwich, 1 against Watford.
Yeah, he definitely got 2
1 against
Watford,
Spurs.
didn't he?
No, Spurs was for that. So, the guy's deadly, quite simply. And I think the problem is free kicks are perfect, aren't they? Because you can't really... The opposition can't... If you get it right, the opposition can't do anything. And I think... Reading a lot about James Ward-Prowse today, so he's got 13%, I think, of all direct free kicks scored since the start of last season, and like top 10 in Premier League history for direct free kicks. And the kid's 26. He's got 26. He's going to probably play Premier League for the next 7-8 years, particularly in the condition he keeps himself in. And he's going to take every single one of those free kicks. Saints are never going to sign a player that's going to have the right to take free kicks over Ward-Prowse. So as long as he's there, he's going to get chances.
Yeah.
And also, there's a fascinating thing about he does his training, where he doesn't just get like a big bag of footballs and take dozens of free kicks. He apparently, after training, will take like 3 or 4, because the idea is, anyone can take 50 free kicks and score 10 of them. But his point is he knows in a game he's only going to get 1 chance. We got 2 on Sunday, but so it's all about, for him, psychologically making it matter.
Yeah, making those.
Which is a really interesting way of looking at it.
It is. It doesn't necessarily make loads of sense to that sort of kind of naked eye thinking about that, but actually, when you explain it like that, does that mean he then puts more into practicing those 4 or 5 free kicks than he would do if he hit 50, where perhaps he might kind of like nonchalantly try a few bits and pieces that are different? You always give yourself the room to miss them, don't you, if you practice 50, whereas if you practice 5, you're going to want to put them all in the net.
And a thing as well, I think it was in Dan Sheldon's piece yesterday in Athletic, was talking about this, about how they think he studies the walls. So he'll, so right now I imagine, the tactics team are sending him a thing of every direct free kick that Newcastle have faced, probably where the weak points are, who doesn't jump, who's the shortest, and he's looking to take advantage of all that. He doesn't just get there and hit it. He knows exactly what he's doing from the minute that ball is put there. And I think one of the fascinating things on that first goal was there was the fouls committed, and you just see Ward-Prowse straight away, just goes straight over. He just knows exactly, he doesn't talk to anyone, just goes straight over to get that ball. An amazing talent.
Yeah, absolutely. So which one was your fave, Tom?
The second one, because it was a bit like the free kick. Was it in the Project Restart against Watford, where he got it up and under the wall?
Yeah.
I liked it, and also I like any free kick where the goalkeeper can't dive.
Yeah. It has that little bit of extra je ne sais quoi, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, in the kind of closing stages of the first half, we saw Bednarek take a whack, didn't we? Well, he landed on his face, didn't he, after kind of jumping for the ball in the challenge. And he was subbed off at half-time. I can only assume that there must have been some sort of risk of concussion or a concern of concussion there, which meant we had Jack Stevens on the pitch. My initial thought was probably how excited Michael Cox would be that we now had one more of the 1 to 11 on the pitch. And I don't know whether this was linked to Jack Stevens. Probably not. I think it was more linked to the fact that we were 3-0 up and we started cruising, and Villa started looking a lot better. And quite early on in the second half, I think McCarthy makes 2 good saves down to his left. And I'm starting to feel a bit anxious. I was at St Mary's when we threw away a 3-0 lead to Leeds United and lost 4-3. I think we can all remember watching that game when we lost to Tranmere Rovers, I think, after being 3-0 up at half-time as well. Lost that one 4-3.
Did we lose to Norwich once, or draw with Norwich, being 3-0 up? We got previous here.
Yeah,
just safe to say.
Obviously, like, all my non-Saints supporting friends are texting me at this point, going, "Oh, look at the halftime score! Oh, you're in dreamland." And to an extent, yes, I was. But as a Saints fan, you're always thinking, oh, but we can find a way to mess this up.
Yeah, unless we get 4, they're like, hang on a minute. But I agree. But I think Saints did take their foot off the gas a little bit. But let's also, Villa are no mugs. Like, Villa have got, in Grealish and Barkley, 2 top players. I mean, Grealish is just a phenomenon, isn't he? He's just such a talent.
Yeah.
And then that Ollie Watkins, when was it Trezeguet came on, he looked like a good player. I think it was almost like Saints took them so much by surprise that it was almost like they started the game. It was almost like they started the game 3-0 down.
Yeah. I was kind of starting to feel already a little bit worried. I thought, if Villa get an early goal in the second half, then suddenly their tails are going to be up. We're going to get nervous, and then we might have a chance of doing the whole Saints crumbling thing. Then we get an opportunity where we're kind of surging forward again. I think some quite nice work from Armstrong. Gets the ball out to Ings, who's at this point on the left wing, almost in the position where you'd expect to find Theo Walcott. Cuts into the edge of the area, and woof, Tom. I mean, this was a proper finish, wasn't it?
It was a perler. It hit the bar and bounced down, which is the other best thing in football, apart from a goalkeeper not moving on a free kick, is the ball hitting the bar and bouncing down. It was great. I mean, this all starts as well from Kyle Walker-Peters jinking his way out of the way of about 4 Villa players to take about 3 or 4 of them just out of the game completely. And a really, just a sort of slaloming Stuart Armstrong run. But, Danny Ings has still got a lot to do. But, God, didn't he? I mean, I tweeted that it was reminiscent of Jay Rodriguez's goal against Fulham.
Oh, yeah.
Which is my favourite Premier League game for Saints, I think. In the 3-0 where Lambert, Lallana and Jay Rodriguez scored. And it was a similar sort of just digging it out and just absolute exocet.
Yeah, it was just beautiful. It was an absolute thing of beauty. And I think I read a stat, and I did try to look for it before the podcast, but I couldn't find it. But I'm fairly sure I read a stat that Danny Ings has now scored the most goals from outside the area since the start of last season, which is an interesting stat to me because I think people think of Danny Ings as being an inside-the-box finisher, which he is.
Well, John, I think that last year, until Danny Ings scored that goal against Burnley, and if there's any Fact Fans statos out there, the horrible home game against Burnley where we lost 2-1, I think that was Danny Ings' first Premier League goal from outside the box.
Okay. So since then, he's kind of added that to his game.
Yeah. And if you think about it, that again, if you think about all the things Saints have got in their locker, that's also quite terrifying. Because Danny Ings has just not changed his game. He's just added a whole new threat to his game. He's still scoring the sort of one-on-ones and the scruffy goals, but he's now added sort of Kevin De Bruyne perlers. It was a great goal.
Oh, yeah. And then this was the point, Tom, where I started to allow myself to enjoy it. 4-0 up. I thought, well, there's no coming back from this. And it's like, the game finishes 4-3. After Ings, we have Tyrone Mings gets a headed goal very shortly afterwards. Sure. And I was, watching the game on, for some reason, my, very expensive stream that I paid for the £15 for seemed to be about 5 minutes behind real time, Tom. So I don't know what was going on there. But obviously I was celebrating Danny Ings and us going 4-0 up whilst people on Twitter were bemoaning the fact that we'd just conceded quite a cheap goal to Tyrone Mings heading it in. And I think this was just Saints not really paying much attention, was it, that the Tyrone Mings headed goal? I think we'd left the door slightly ajar for Villa here, hadn't we?
Yeah, they fell asleep a little bit. But again, if we talk about quality, Grealish, as good a player as Kyle Walker-Peters is, like Grealish just kind of went... After that sort of 35-minute mark, sort of Grealish just skinned Kyle Walker-Peters kind of any time he wanted to. And... it was a brilliant cross. But, Jack Stevens, who we do love on the podcast, but his aerial prowess is not the one, I think kind of gets mistimes his jump, gets it wrong, and it was a really smart header from Mings. But I agree. At this point, I'm thinking there's no way.
But yeah, I mean, Villa's keep on coming. Vestergaard does that incredible block, which
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. I especially enjoyed the wink that he did to the camera afterwards. Did you spot that, Tom?
I didn't spot that. That's a shame.
We had another Alex McCarthy save. We then had the injuries to Ryan Bertrand and then Danny Ings. So then we have like Long, Diallo on. We've got Stevens. James Ward-Prowse moves to left back, doesn't he? And Diallo kind of goes into midfield.
Interesting thing.
Clearly doesn't trust Vokins. And actually, the game really is over, I think, at this point. We get to the 92nd minute when Grealish wins a penalty, which is a little bit of an error of judgment from Diallo. Didn't really see him coming, and he's just going to clear the ball, but Grealish gets there before him. I think probably maybe Diallo needs to... His awareness will probably improve, I think, with game time in the Premier League, because it does move at a faster pace than he'll probably be used to. And, you know, Watkins takes the penalty. I almost felt like McCarthy's form up to this point had been so good. I was half expecting McCarthy to save it. You know, it felt like one of those games where everything was going to go our way. But they get that. It's 4-2. Then Grealish again, kind of making a bit of a mockery of Armstrong and Kyle Walker-Peters. And then a mockery of Alex McCarthy as well, where I don't know what happens to him. Does he give him the eyes? He's just not expecting it, is it? It's quite a clever finish.
He's expecting it. I mean, he's such a good player. I keep saying it, but what a talent! And I think it almost just it's that, you know, the great footballers do the unexpected, and I think, you know, a lot of people were expecting him to punt that ball into the box. But when you've got that much talent and you can, you know, put the ball on a postage stamp, why not have a crack? And this was a bit squeaky bum time.
Well, was it though? Because basically, from the kickoff, the game was over after that, wasn't it? So did you ever feel like the lead was truly under threat, Tom?
Yeah, I did, because I felt that. I thought, well, you know, when he gets to 97 minutes and there's 97 minutes on the clock, you almost think, well, you know what, if they do get a point, if Villa do get a point, then fair play. And I think we do try towards the end. You know, we pass the ball back, don't we, to Vestergaard, and Vestergaard lumps it and it hits Ollie Watkins. And it would have been fascinating to see if that ball had hit Ollie Watkins and bounced kindly for him, and he'd have gone through, if the referee would have dared to blown up, as quickly as he did anyway. Yeah. Dean Smith was said there should have been 12 minutes of injury time. I'm not quite sure where that comes from.
I don't think, did he say that there should have been 12 minutes of injury time, or did he say that if they'd had 12 minutes of injury time, they should have probably have gone on to draw, if not win it?
I thought he said, yeah, referees played 7, he should have played 12. I'm not quite sure what that's based on. But I think it was scary at the end. But someone pointed out on Twitter that it's maybe not a bad thing, because it keeps the players grounded and reminds them there's still an awful lot to do. And players like Diallo, you know, they then have come on and thinking like, oh my God, you know, this is a different level. It also did show the kind of weakness in our squad a little bit. Vokins wasn't on the bench for whatever reason. But Ward-Prowse actually acquitted himself pretty well at left back, I actually thought. So it is tough though, isn't it? I mean, if you've got 3 players off injured, you know, that is kind of bad news. I would argue as well 3 of our probably 4 most influential players.
Yeah.
If you look at like real leaders, Bednarek and Bertrand and Danny Ings, you know, probably 3 of our 4 most influential players. So yeah, a bit hairy.
Yeah. Danny Ings, it seems that the injury wasn't as bad as perhaps it looked. I mean, when I saw the replay, he kind of went over on his knee and it looked pretty scary, didn't it? Ralph Hasenhüttl saying afterwards that, you know, Danny Ings immediately shouted, "My knee, my knee." And he was very worried that it was going to be a very serious injury. But it seems that the news coming out is that it doesn't seem that serious. Probably serious enough to keep him out of the game against Newcastle and quite possibly the England squad. for the international break that we've got coming up. But I don't think we'd mind if he misses those 2 games if that means he's okay. I mean, there was some worry that he might have done his ACL, and then you're looking at kind of probably the whole season being over and not coming back until next season.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting, the club putting out a statement today saying, an initial scan on Sunday night had shown it wasn't as there is, because it would be pretty embarrassing for the club now in 2 or 3 days' time to have to row back on that. So they must be, the medical advice must be pretty sure, you'd hope. I think we were all worried. For me as well, it looked like a kind of innocuous challenge. He didn't get like clattered, did he? Which you always worry they're actually worse, aren't they? When sort of nothing happens, that's when you're often a bit more scared. But hopefully, the comments last night from Ralph about my knee, that was when everyone's had this horrible moment of like, oh guys, the bloke's season is over and possibly his career. But fingers crossed he'll be all right. And like you say, if the worst that happens is he misses out on Newcastle at home with Saints 5th in the league, then we'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing which I found quite interesting from Ralph Hasenhüttl's post-match press conference is, saying obviously the first 60 minutes was good, the final 30 minutes was not. He said we stopped doing what we can do. And then he goes on to say, but being in that situation, as in being 4-0 up, is something we're not used to. In the future, we'll get used to it. I love that confidence, isn't it? Yeah. It's just like, well, the players aren't used to being 4-0 up, so they don't know what to do in that situation. But don't worry, we're going to get there quite a few more times in the future. They're going to have to get used to being 4-0 up, which it just speaks of a manager that is really pleased with the way his team is playing. To make a statement like that, which is quite a big statement, I think, even if it maybe wasn't necessarily intended to be so.
Yeah, I can't remember that. When did Saints last go 4-0 up? I was wondering if it. I can't remember. Got no idea. I think he realises. I think the league is weak this year, isn't it? We don't know what any team's going to do, but it does feel a bit like when Leicester went on to win it, in terms of there's a lack of consistency and there's kind of psychodramas happening at a lot of the big clubs. Liverpool losing Van Dijk, Man United having Solskjaer, Guardiola at Man City clearly, maybe not 100% happy. You just get that feeling that something weird could happen this season. And the weirdest thing might be that, Tottenham win the league. Which isn't actually that weird if you think about it, with Mourinho as their manager and Son and Kane up front. But the league's got a strange feeling about it. And with Saints playing the way they are, if they can keep players fit, they probably feel they could beat everyone in that league probably on their day, apart from Liverpool.
Yeah, but I think, having watched Aston Villa beat Liverpool 7-2, which was a ridiculous game, and obviously every shot Villa hit kind of took a deflection and went into the Liverpool goal. Everything they hit went in that day. But I don't know. I think Saints will go into every match trying to win the game. I don't think they're going to go into a single match this season trying to get a point necessarily, or just trying not to lose, or going in wanting to do damage limitation. To an extent, we've seen the way that we beat Man City last season. That was very much this is what we need to do, and yes, we will have to soak up a lot of pressure and we will have to get lucky. But I think Man City are probably a weaker prospect this season than they were last season. Yeah. We've seen with Tottenham, yes, they look really good at St Mary's, but they didn't look so good in the first half. But yeah, I think they're probably in for a shout for trying to mount a bit of a title challenge. I kind of think Liverpool will win the title, but I do agree there is that 2015-16 vibe to the season, and it seems like Saints are looking much better than we probably have done, I think, since that season. So, a chance to kind of profit from that would be amazing. And Tom, we've got this really, really bizarre opportunity on Friday.
To go top for the first time in our history, John.
Top of the Premier League, yeah. We've been top of the old First Division, haven't we? back in the
Yeah,
80s.
83, yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, and also Newcastle at home was the last game before lockdown. Last game in front of a crowd at St Mary's. I was there. It was horrendous. Ginefo got sent off. It was just an awful, awful game. So the revenge is needed. Newcastle look pretty good, to be fair, at the moment. But yeah, Saints are going to go into this thinking if they can win, they will be top. Now, they probably won't be top by the time all the other fixtures are settled. But they're going to go into the international break, probably in the top 4.
Yeah.
And there'll be 8 games into a season. So we're over a fifth of the way through a season. They've played some difficult teams already: Chelsea, Spurs, Everton. They'll fancy Man United. They'll fancy Man City. They won't be worried about playing anyone. And yeah, we'll probably get ahead of ourselves. But a tilt at Europe right now doesn't seem unrealistic if we can keep players fit.
No, it doesn't. I definitely take that point. I am going to throw a bit of caution into going to sprinkle some caution over the podcast at this point, Tom, because do you remember the last time Saints had a similar opportunity quite early on in the season to go top of the league? It was under Pochettino. Do you remember this? We're away at Arsenal in the Emirates, and I think Arsenal and Saints were the top 2 teams
Because we got
in the
battered.
division that day. We didn't get battered. I think we lost 2-1. But we may have lost 2-0, but the first goal we conceded came from Artur Boruc trying to do a Cruyff turn just outside the Saints box. And I can't remember who the Arsenal striker was, but they took advantage of that and put the ball in the back of that. And that was the last time we had the opportunity to go top of the Premier League. I just fear that, it's too obvious, us being able to beat Newcastle at home. It's not going to happen, Tom. We're going to somehow fluff our lives.
But we've spoken about this loads, John. Is the Saints' paradox is, you'll go to Chelsea and you get a point. You should have get 3. You comfortably beat Everton at home, beat Man City, lose at home to Newcastle. This is what Ralph needs to do, isn't it? To get this group of players from 11th in the league, 7th or 6th, is to turn over your West Hams, your Burnleys, and your Newcastles. Almost take the softer points. But I think why not? Saints will fancy it on Friday and go into the international break. Get Danny Ings back after the break. Then they've got 2 difficult games in Wolves away and Man United at home. But they can draw at Wolves away and they can definitely beat Man United at home. So by that stage, we're getting ahead of ourselves. You're 11 games, you're 10 games into the season, but they won't fear anyone.
No,
and they shouldn't.
We absolutely need to get this kind of game against Newcastle done. I mean, we have to win that. And I want Saints to prove me wrong, because I have a theory that with Southampton, every time we get to the point where we're starting to look really good, I think we start to believe the hype. We believe our own hype. And I think as soon as we become overconfident, everything sort of seems to fall apart at that point. We lack concentration. And I guess in some ways the Villa game is almost a microcosm of that, because as soon as we started believing that we're some amazing world-beating side and we're going to go on and win this 8-0, we then end up allowing them to get it back to 4-3. We take our kind of like mind off the matter at hand. And I just really hope that the Saints players don't go St Mary's on Friday thinking, oh my God, this is our chance to go top of the league. And instead they're actually going really focused, going, right, this is how we need to beat Newcastle. These are their weaknesses. James Ward-Prowse is thinking, this is how they set up their wall. Is it going to be Vokins perhaps against Alan Saint-Maxime? I think he's going to be having to look at this and going, well, this is going to have to be could this be the launch pad for my career, dealing with this right winger who's so talented and such an exciting prospect really for Newcastle. And they have been looking better, but I just hope we don't go there thinking, oh, this is Newcastle under Steve Bruce, and that we really do focus and we get that result.
They look pretty good so far at Newcastle. I don't think. I mean, Ralph doesn't strike me as a sort of man who lets players take it easy, and I wonder if that second half against Villa is a blessing in disguise because, they'll all have had today off, and maybe they'll get tomorrow off as well. But they'll come in on Wednesday, and I think he'll say, "Well, yeah, great first 60 minutes, but let's watch that 30 minutes over and over again and look at what we did wrong." And with Saints, it seems to be, and maybe this is just because this is what Ralph keeps saying, is that if they stick to the plan, they will win or draw games and make life very difficult for players, the opposition players. The minute they sort of stop doing what Ralph has told them to do and they sort of, their minds wander, that's when they struggle. And the trick is, they did it for 90 minutes against Everton. They did it for 60 minutes against Villa. They did it for 60 minutes against Chelsea. I think they did it for 90 minutes against West Brom. The trick is, doing it for 90 minutes, home against Newcastle. Boring game, but they've got to win, because if they win, go into the international break, top 4.
Oh, I mean, it would be so good, wouldn't it, Tom? So good. All right, Tom.
Stop a European holiday.
I'm going to bring up a email from Dan, who's in Hong Kong. Getting lots of international listeners kind of emailing in at the moment. I like it. I think we had Thailand and New Zealand last week. We've got Hong Kong this week. So Dan, hi gents. It's fun to listen to Saints again. Well, through your podcast, watching in Hong Kong with the UK commentary was ridiculous. Fairly sure I completed my Saints bingo card within 20 minutes. He's got 9-0 versus Leicester. Free kick expert James Ward-Prowse. Most drop points from winning positions in his bingo card. He's really talking about the Everton game, but also talks about kind of the pundits. He even says, even after the final whistle, when they showed the table, one of them said, "Oh, Southampton are up to 5th." And the other pundit kind of felt it necessary to chip in with temporarily. And, how would pundits say, if it was Man United? He says, he thought we did a very professional number on league leaders Everton. I think at points we did really well against Aston Villa as well. And is asking, is some acknowledgement too much to ask from the pundits? Thought we were the neutrals' favourite. You'd think we'd get some actual analysis beyond, James Ward-Prowse is all right at free kicks, and they lost 9-0 a while ago. So that's the kind of first question. There's another point. I mean, what do you think about this one, Tom?
I think he hits a really good point. I think a lot of people... I actually didn't think Redmond had that bad a game against Everton. I thought he struggled for the first 30 minutes, and then I thought he was actually quite influential. But Sky giving him man of the match was quite interesting, because it suggested either that they saw an unbelievable game that no one else did, or that they weren't really paying attention to Saints. And Alan Smith just sort of, gave a man of the match to the bloke who he thought, played the best for the second half. I think that's right. And I listened to the Guardian's Football Weekly podcast earlier, and on that they had a bloke whose name escapes me, but he's a Wycombe Wanderers midfielder, and he was on there with like Barry Glendenning, and they were talking about James Ward-Prowse, and they were talking about how good his free kicks are and everything. And this guy who plays for Wycombe said, well, yeah, he's a pretty good midfielder, Premier League midfielder. He's not great. And I think it shows a lack of awareness of the all-round game that James Ward-Prowse has. Because people look at those free kicks and they're saying he's the new Matt Letitia. What are these amazing free kicks? Well, actually, any Saints fan who's watched games in the last 2 years will tell you that James Ward-Prowse is now actually a tough tackling midfielder who can play at fullback, and a really good passer of the ball, and a very intelligent footballer, and a very aggressive footballer, who also can take really, really, really good set pieces. The idea that he's this luxury player that you keep on the pitch to take free kicks is just wrong. But I think it belies the fact that people who are meant to be experts don't watch Saints, and they just sort of see that, whereas Ward-Prowse has a lot more to his game now than just some snazzy free kicks.
Tom, I think this tells me that I need to give you a podcasting recommendation. I think you need to ditch Guardian Football Weekly and go for the Total Football Show, which is where James Richardson went after the Guardian.
All right, I'm making it.
Yeah, I mean they had Michael Cox on who joined us last week, and he didn't give that analysis of James Ward-Prowse. He talked about kind of what we talked about in last week's podcast. So, I mean, this week's Total Football show, it was probably a little bit boring for everyone who listened to the Saints FC podcast last week. So apologies, listeners, if we ruined this Monday show because Michael Cox didn't get a chance to go into as much detail as he did last time. But slightly more nuanced analysis, Tom. I think they've taken it a level up. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. I'll get back to Dan from Hong Kong. He also says, isn't the new signing effect strange? It looked an easy and obvious decision a month ago. Drop Romeo, drop Stevens, in come the new boys. Now Romeo is playing out of his skin and Vestergaard suddenly looks like the player we bought from Germany. And if anything, Bednarek is making a case for him being dropped. What point do you put in Salisu and Diallo in as starters, and who would come out? He also mentioned that I didn't think we have much of a plan B with Ralph, and also says that he doesn't think Ralph would alter the formation to bring them in, and saying, do you remember those dark days when we had to play 5 at the back just to try and keep the score down? So
I don't know why. I mean, there's the theory that Salisu has been made up to make Vestergaard play well. That can't be true. I'm sure Salisu is actually a real footballer, but has some sort of mystery injury, that no one knows what that is. I can't see why, and I'm sure Diallo is very, very good, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the team is a finely oiled machine right now, with everyone playing a really important role and playing it to perfection. Someone has to play badly for one of those players to come in. I think Bednarek is the weaker out of the two centre-backs right now, but that says more about the quality of Vestergaard than it does actually about how bad Bednarek has been playing. Yes, he got made to look like a mug by Werner, but he won't be the only person that happens to this season.
No. I mean, Vestergaard has really stepped up. But it's one of those things, isn't it? And it also shows the importance of bringing in signings just to keep your other players on their toes. I mean, if Romeo improves this much just because he knows that once he loses his position, he's going to really have to struggle to get it back from Diallo, and actually maybe playing better every week is a better way of maintaining your position in the starting 11 than it is, losing it and trying to fight to get that back, because if Diallo doesn't put a foot wrong, he won't be dropped. So he's kind of got the shirt at the moment, but Diallo is breathing down his neck, I'm sure, and he must be thinking about that. And probably the same for Vestergaard and Bednarek. I think they are going to be worried that once Salisu's back to full fitness, that was a player that Ralph said he brought in to make it into the first team, not just as a backup. So if that means the rest of them all step up their game because they don't want to be the one that gets dropped, that's a really great thing. And hopefully we'll see the same thing happen with Nathan Redmond as well. I think he was kind of perhaps unfairly dropped after that Everton game, but lots of things weren't coming off for him. So I can see why Ralph might want to experiment with Walcott. I understand that.
Great game. Yeah, I didn't think Walcott had a great game against Villa. But he's probably a bit on the periphery for a lot of it. I felt it was harsh on Redmond, but I feel Redmond will probably play against Newcastle, and they'll put Walcott through the middle instead of Danny Ings. Which will be exciting. I think Saints have signed well, but also, you're seeing a lot more muscle injuries this season, a lot more injuries. There's more suspensions because there's more cards being doled out. Players are going to get chances, but ultimately it would be grossly unfair on any of that team to get dropped.
Yeah. And I've got one last thing. So Dan's covered a hell of a lot here in his email, but I think this one's worth pointing out as well. Do you remember I mentioned last week, Tom, that we have a chap called Ben who's doing this Saints 11 with Ed Chamberlain. So we've got international break next week, so we'll release it out there so you still get some Saints content in your Saints FC podcast feed. But Dan has come in with his kind of his wild card entry for his Saints perfect Saints 11. He's gone for Tommy Widrington. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah, the tough tackling Geordie sort of defensive midfielder, sort of same sort of time as Shearer came through from that where we had in Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean, he says, unsung hero, great attitude, clearly loved playing and always gave 100%, was Mr. Utility, perfect bench pair. Any outfield positions covered. Tommy Weird is your man. I'm sure he'd have a go in between the sticks if you told him as well. So,
John, did we ever get your unsung hero?
No, we didn't.
Are we ever going to get that?
We're at 59 minutes now, Tom, so I'm going to need to think about it for a bit longer so we can wrap this up perfectly on the hour.
Swerved.
I promise, after I listen to the Ben, and which actually, to be honest, I have listened to it already, it's a really good episode. So make sure, even though there's no Saints game necessarily coming up in the international break, it is definitely worth tuning in for the Ed Chamberlain one. It's a really good listen. So you've got that one to look forward to. But I think from us, Tom, that's probably it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think just a quick reminder of the sponsors as well. So if you wanted to try out those products that we talked about earlier, it's manscaped.com, and then the code to get your discount is Saints. So just show them some love.
John, I promise I will try those products out for the next episode and report back.
Fantastic. I can't wait to hear your experience, Tom. Right, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking about Saints winning again, being so high up the table, and that potential opportunity to go up to the top of the table, even if only briefly on a Friday. What an opportunity that is for Saints, and I'm already excited for Friday. I mean, I know you shouldn't wish your life away, but I'm ready for Friday.
Hey, there's going to be nothing else to do now and then, so you might as well look forward to that.
Yeah. Right. Goodbye, listeners, and we'll see you next week.